Hello and welcome to the Career Changers. Our guest today is Benjamin Ritter, leadership and career coach, passionate about guiding others in finding, creating, and sustaining a career they love. With over 10 years of experience coaching and working with clients from companies such as Amazon, Google, Pinterest, and Yelp, Ben understands how to navigate any career path you decide you want to travel. Ben received his doctorate in organizational leadership with a focus on value congruence and job satisfaction, and earned an MBA in entrepreneurial management and an MPH in health policy administration. But prior to that, and this is what I found pretty impressive, something that we can discuss during our interview, a very long history of career change. Today, Benjamin is going to talk about his career and how truly working for yourself at work and in life. Hi, Benjamin. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm really pumped to be here. Yeah, I'm happy that my career changes have led me to this point.
That's great. I actually have my script and I copy all your career changes. So I was a little bit overwhelmed when going through it, and I find it very curious. So of course, probably you can talk to us about that part of your life. I took this extract from your personal account, Everything and Anything, noted due to the impact of my career and life. The concept of working was a given for me, and saying yes to opportunities has put me on a road that has taught me skills and taken me places I never would have experienced. Here is a short snippet of other jobs I've held from 1999 to 2007. So how did you start your professional life? Or better, what was your first job?
Well, I had a lot of first jobs, I kind of think, because it wasn't really like the professional job where I feel like I started my career. As you mentioned, work was just work for me. It was something that I did, and I would say yes to opportunities. It didn't really matter what the opportunity was, if it was something that I could do. So I flipped burgers, I, cleaned tables, I was a camp counselor, a daycare worker, I walked dogs, I fixed homes, the list goes on and on. I'd say the first actual job that I had, which you would call like a professional job, was probably when I got a position with the Illinois Department of Public Health. So I was a communications and outreach coordinator. Prior to that, I worked for a nonprofit for a little bit. I had an internship at like a ball bearing corporation. And, but that was really kind of the first, hey, I'm sitting behind a desk. And honestly, sitting behind a desk, like for some people, I think are used to it or get used to it. But I think because of my prior career experiences, it was really tough for me to just sit still.
Yeah, that's something I identify with. What was your dream job when you were a child?
Yeah, well, I wanted to be a professional athlete. So I played soccer my whole life. My father played professional soccer internationally, and that kind of dictated how I thought about work as well. I never really thought I was going to work. So this idea of what is your career going to be? What is your career vision? It was to be on the pitch. And so I never really put much credit in like, well, what actual job do I want after that? And so when the soccer vision ended, I was kind of lost. I had literally no idea what I wanted to do with my professional life. And, I think some people go through this maybe at the beginning of college or middle of college. So this was kind of like at the end of my degree of undergrad, and even a little bit after that, which I was still kind of shrugged. And at the same time, the one thing that I was a little interested in, which was nutrition and dietetics, that was initially my major, was canceled 2 years into my college experience. So it kind of was just kind of like, well, what am I going to do now?
How it happened? It was canceled.
They decided to cut funding. So I was able to do an independent study and get a minor in the space, and then I just had to make a decision what I really wanted to do. I looked towards transferring, and that's a whole nother story. And because I did end up moving across country, but ended up coming back for a couple different reasons. But I looked into sciences. I thought maybe I want to go to med school because I like how the body works. But then I thought that I could have a larger impact than with the kind of the time investment that it requires. So then I thought I'd go into health policy, and that's kind of how I started the next part of my career journey.
Mm. So before becoming a coach, you had many careers or many jobs. Do you have any funny or interesting stories to share with us?
Well, so a lot of my jobs were very just kind of ad hoc. I was a brand ambassador, bartender, liquor promoter for many, many years. And this was great, by the way, because when I lost who I was professionally in undergrad, I had to figure out who I was. And so, it's when people try to figure out what to do for their career, they think they're going to get the answer. Then it- the goal isn't to get the answer. The goal is to figure out what isn't the answer. And so when I was trying to grow myself and learn who I was, it wasn't sitting and reflecting and journaling. It was going and doing things to put myself in uncomfortable situations so I could see what I liked and what I disliked. And one of the things that I ended up doing was being a movie promoter at bars and such throughout the city of Chicago. And one of those movies was 28 Weeks Later, which is a zombie movie. And so I ended up driving or getting driven to kind of a special effects makeup artist who made me look like a zombie, gave me red eye contacts, and tied a leash around my throat. And I was led throughout the city of Chicago to different bars, scaring people, acting like a zombie from the movie. So I've have a number of stories like that. Another one where I was covered in plaster to be a mannequin for a Civil War museum, which is kind of neat. But yeah, just putting myself into strange work situations that also led me to not only make money, but learn social skills.
Mm. So how and when did you start thinking about becoming a coach?
Yeah. So when I was trying to figure out who I was in undergrad, I came across the field of personal and professional development. And so I took everything that I dedicated to soccer and I dedicated it to really growing who I was. And I kind of just ended up happy and confident and just kind of still kept this let's just get curious about the world mentality. And that would led me to go out by myself a lot and just kind of meet people. And when I was out one night, I ran into a guy who said, "You know what? You need to meet my boss." And the next day I met his boss and was hired to be a nationwide coach for men across the United States. And that was like the first time I was paid to coach. And there were other moments when I was networking for a full-time job. I applied for and received a federal grant for free life coaching from the government, which is kind of cool, and from the maternal and child health department. And I believe it was a while ago. And then when I was working in healthcare, everyone around me, I worked in a pretty toxic environment, would come to me, other than the executives, by the way, would come to me and just would complain about leadership. They would be crying. They would share stories with me, and it just didn't make sense why we had to live in a culture like this. And I was part of the executive team at the time. And so I looked for ways to potentially change that. And I was in a leadership program with the organization. I had my own kind of director of people as a mentor. And it just kind of hit me. Why don't I combine my skills from coaching, from healthcare, from operations, from all these different areas, from my passion for health? And why don't I fix this environment? And why don't I make a difference for the people that are coming to me each and every single day? And
Mm.
so then I started trying to do the work at the organization, and I got involved at the corporate level. Basically, I crafted my job, which is, if anyone wants to look how to make their current job better, look up the topic job crafting. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. And it worked for a little bit. I started getting involved in some projects, but then we got acquired for the second time, and everyone I was working with got let go, and all the projects I was working on got centralized and paused. And so I had to figure out what I was going to do next. So the goal was never just, hey, look, let's just go start my company, which, because I had some other entrepreneurial ventures at the time going on. The goal was, why don't I just do this in an organization? But that path ended up being blocked. So I looked for a new one, and that led me to go get my doctorate, to become a credible source in the space, to do research, to get published. And then I was on a plane one day, and I said, what really matters? What what helps people grow and change and be fulfilled. And I wrote it on the back of a napkin, and Live for Yourself Consulting was born. And it was 2016. And so we're looking at about almost 6 years later, and we're going strong.
Mm. So one of your quotes say, I felt stuck, overworked and underutilized, and realized that something had to change. In reflection, every time I've ever felt unfulfilled, I lost my sight and my insight. I lost my life in exploration of it. What we need to do when all of a sudden we realize that we are not going in the right direction?
Well, first off, good for you for realizing it, because that is tough. So many people just go through the days, and they don't think that it can be better, and they don't think that they deserve for it to be better, and they think that it's good enough. So for you to stop and say this isn't good enough is great, because your brain's going, something is wrong. And so now what you have to do is get a little bit curious. What is wrong? And so very often when we get to the stage where we kind of feel like we're in the wrong place, we have a lot of stories that we're telling ourselves, such as, my manager doesn't care about me. This organization is never going to help me grow, or I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, or I'll never be a good leader. And so you need to first off take a step back and look at what stories are you telling yourself, because they're holding you back more than the situation that you're in. One of the biggest mistakes I made in healthcare, when I was really resentful towards my job, where I was working to not work, I literally would put more effort in not working than actually working. It was a pretty negative cycle. One of the gravest mistakes I made was forget that I was in control of how I felt. Was forget that I was creating a negative environment for myself to work in each and every single day, and that I was actually wasting time because my job and the relationships that were around me could help me get my next job, could help me develop skills or stories that then I could share in interviews, or even build a network to help me in the next stage of my career. So don't waste your time, explore your stories and get curious. And then once you do that and feel a little bit more free, you can start asking yourself, well, when was I excited about work? What were the projects that I was working on? Who were the people that I was around? What are the challenges that I wanted to learn? What is the meaning that I feel behind what I do each and every? Why did I even go to school for this? Why did I even accept a job at this organization? And as you start writing those answers down, you'll find some overlaps. And then you'll start getting an idea of what you might want to go get curious about next, which is, like I told you before, you don't get the answers, you get potential non-answers and then potential areas to explore. And then you go out there and you explore them. And I'll pause for a second because I know that was a lot.
Well, thank you for that. And I guess there are many tips and techniques you use with your clients. So how do you support people in their careers through your work?
So a couple different options. Sometimes people know what they want, they just don't know how to get the job. So there's some pretty straightforward strategies in terms of how to build a community of individuals that know what you want to do and are able to get you a position in that field. So leveraging things like LinkedIn or email and one-to-ones and such. Then of course you have to have the tools, you have to have the resume and the cover letter. You need to be, good in interviews. So it's practicing those and getting those geared up and ready to go. But mainly what I do with clients is just programs. So 3 or 6 or 12-month programs where we are gaining clarity in terms of who you are, what you care about, helping you believe in all of that and accepting it as your brand, and then learning how to put that brand out there in the world to create a career that you want. Now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and just making sure that you understand, and my clients understand, that they are empowered and have permission to work towards anything that they desire, but they just need to know what that is. They need to believe that they can. They need to have the tools to do it, and they need to create a community around themselves to support it.
Mm. In your experience, how important is to find our life purpose, and how can having a life purpose change our professional lives?
One of the first videos I ever released, the first ever talk in person that I ever gave, was how find your purpose was the worst advice that I ever received. And I share how I was mistaken in what I thought my purpose was. And that led me down a path of neglect to a lot of other areas of my life. And when that was gone, I was lost. And so I think we need to be very careful about how we use this word and how we hold it above ourselves for something that we need to achieve or need to figure out. Because then if we don't, we failed and we're not good enough and we're not doing something right. And then anything else that we're doing at the time also isn't good enough, which is not, it's just a lose-lose situation, basically. So what I like to say instead is explore, define, and then align your values in your life. So find out your values, and your values are basically the times in your life where you were the happiest, the things that you care most about. Make sure you define whatever those are. For example, my number one value is health, but I define health not just nutritionally. I define health as mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And each one of those terms has a definition for itself. And so everything that I do in my life relates to health. And so if I know my top 3 to 5 values, I then can put just an Excel spreadsheet together, have my values listed, and then rank the job opportunities or ideas that I'm thinking of doing by those values. You can get a nice score. You can figure out where it lands within your value set. Because if you actually make decisions that align with your values, it doesn't matter what the decision is, you will automatically show up each and every single day, be enthusiastic, be passionate, try hard, you learn, you challenge yourself, and ultimately you will grow, not just for yourself, but within the professional world as well, because there are ladders. And so if you show up each and every single day in this way, you are going to move up. You're going to also discover new opportunities, and they're all going to matter to you.
So you also say that we search for mentors, look up to role models, hire coaches, all to find leadership to help us achieve our professional and personal goals. But what if I let you in on a little secret? The most important leader is the one that lives inside you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let that sit because I love that so much.
So what would you say about this? Because generally we are so often scared to ask for guidance. And at the same time, we need sometimes to have guidance because we don't know what is the right direction. But as you say, the most important leader lives inside us. So how can we connect with that part and become our own coach in this case?
Mm-hmm. Well, who ultimately is the person that asks for guidance? It's you. You ask for guidance. So even if I need to go find a mentor, who makes that decision? You cannot do anything in your life without yourself. So if you're waiting for someone to come around and do it for you, you're going to lose, period. And the best thing you can do for yourself is develop the leader within yourself. If you know what you want to achieve or know what you care about, and you believe that you can achieve it, nothing will stand in your way. You will show up intentionally each and every single day. You will contact the people that you need to contact. You talk to those mentors. You'll apply to the jobs that you need to apply for. You won't hold yourself back. When I work with clients, it doesn't surprise me anymore. It is the majority of the time that people are afraid to send a message to someone on LinkedIn. They're afraid to connect with them. They're afraid to apply for a job. And they think they're not good enough for those things, so they don't do it. Who am I to do this? And so the only person holding yourself back is yourself. And that's why I talk about self-leadership so much. Because if you can solve that, if you can get out of your own way to say, this is what I want to achieve, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to work towards it each and every single day, no matter what happens outside of myself, the things I can't control. I was working with a client last week, and he received 2 rejections for the first positions that he interviewed for. Now, the evidence for those positions was they weren't right for him. He didn't want them. He actually complained about having to go to the interview because he didn't want to do it, but he wanted to get interview practice. And when the position